road and suddenly it starts raining. Sadly, you don't have an umbrella, and as you reach home, you are soaking wet. Your scientific brain now starts to wonder. My clothes absorbed all the rainwater, but I was in the rain too. Did my body absorb some water too? Did the rainwater seep into my body, or will I bloat with all that water? So let me tell you that our body has a waterproof covering in the form of skin. And this skin as an organ is made up of a tissue called epithelial tissue. And today we'll be discussing about it in detail. About epithelial tissue, there are mainly two things you need to keep in mind. First, the cells in this tissue are tightly packed. They are stuck very close to each other. So close that they look like a continuous sheet of cells. And second, the tissue lacks blood vessels. So all the nutrition needed for these cells is supplied by a layer on which these epithelial cells lie. Now, since this layer is present at the base of all these cells, it's rightly called a basement membrane. Are you wondering where in your body is this epithelial tissue present? Some may say only our skin, but you'll be shocked to know that the insides of our respiratory and digestive systems are also made up of epithelial tissue. So now that we know epithelial tissue is present almost everywhere in our body, based on the location and function it performs in the body, there are various types of epithelial tissue, and their names may be a little confusing. So in this session, we'll learn a way to remember the names by understanding their function in our body. So coming back, the types of this tissue are based on two factors: number of the cells in the tissue and shape of the cells in the tissue. So first, let's deal with the number of cells. In this tissue, if there's only one layer of cells, we call it a simple epithelial tissue. And if there are multiple layers of cells, like you can see here, you may expect it to be called opposite of simple, that is complex. But no, it's called stratified epithelial tissue. Here the word stratify means to be placed or formed in layers. So is it easy? A single layer means simple epithelial tissue, whereas many layers of cells is a stratified epithelial tissue. Now coming to the second type of classification, that is based on shape of cells. The cells of this tissue have three variants. First, the cells are flat and square-like, just like these floor tiles here. So if they are square-like, we call it squamous epithelium. Second, the cells can be cube-like, like an ice cube or something. So because of this shape, it gets its name as cuboidal epithelium. And third, it can be rectangular, column-like in shape, and hence are called columnar epithelium. So we've seen two types of classification based on number of cells and shape of cells. Now let's take a look at the position of these different types of epithelial tissue in our body. Squamous type of epithelium is found in the lining of lungs and our skin. But even though they both are similar tissues, both of them have square-like cells. But looking carefully at this image, you can tell the difference. Yes, the skin has many layers of squamous cells as compared to the lining of the lungs. Can you guess why skin has multiple layers? That is because the skin is protective in function and hence needs many layers. Whereas the lining of the lungs have only a single layer of cells. That is because during respiration, as we take in oxygen, the oxygen first enters our lungs and from there it has to be transported to our blood. So for this transfer, it is better to have only one single layer of cells, right? So here we've seen two types of squamous epithelium. Simple squamous in the lungs and stratified squamous in the form of our skin. Moving to the type of epithelial tissue that has cells shaped like an ice cube. Yes, the cuboidal epithelium is present in our kidneys, and it also lines the ducts of a few glands like the tear gland, salivary gland, and sweat gland. The lining of our kidney has just one layer of cells in this tissue. If you're wondering why just one layer, it is because it helps in absorption of waste materials from our blood to excrete them out of our body. So this simple cuboidal epithelium filters our blood for toxic substances. And the ducts or tubes of our sweat glands and salivary glands generally have two layers, as they have to protect the duct from damage so that they function properly. So the stratified cuboidal epithelium is generally made up of two layers of cells only. Lastly, let's talk about the tissue which has rectangular cells, or also called as columnar epithelium. So columnar epithelium lines the organs of our digestive system, like the stomach, small intestine, and large intestine. So like you can see here, the insides of our digestive system have simple columnar epithelium. But the question is that, are these column-like cells also present in multiple layers? Is there something like a stratified columnar tissue? The answer is no. The second type of tissue made by columnar cells is an extremely thick layer of cells, but just one layer. This layer is so thick that it looks like there are multiple layers. But like you can see, it's just one layer. So then it's named as pseudo-stratified columnar tissue. Pseudo here means false, as it looks false. So in this way, we've seen all the types of epithelial tissue and their location and function in our body. But apart from these, there are a few special features which are present to form special epithelial tissue. Now in this tissue, a few cuboidal and columnar epithelial cells have hair-like filaments on top of each cell. This hair-like filaments is called cilia. But note that not all cells in this cuboidal and columnar tissue have cilia on them. Just a few places in our body where movement of particles is required. Like for example, the food pipe in our body has ciliated columnar epithelium, as it has to help in pushing the food downwards into the stomach. Then another special feature is that the stratified squamous epithelium that we said makes up our skin has a protein named keratin. And it is because of this protein in those cells that makes our skin waterproof. And it's also sometimes called keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. It's a big name, right? But try to remember the function of it. So till now, we've been discussing this tissue based on the shape of the cell, right? But there's a magical type of epithelial tissue. This tissue can change the shape of its cell according to the stress it has been exposed to. And here when I say stress, it's the amount of fluid present in the organ. More the fluid, more the stress. So which organ you think can hold a lot of fluid in it? Yes, it's the urinary bladder. This organ is made up of transitional epithelium. Transitional epithelium can change the shape of its cells from round to flat as the bladder expands while holding a lot of water in it. Isn't it amazing how our body functions? You should go ahead and read more such amazing facts about our body. Okay, so we're coming to an end of this session. Let's quickly revise and look into the table. So at the end of this session, if you're wondering why is it necessary to know this tissue, then think again. Your body mostly is covered with this type of tissue. And you probably won't be you if epithelial tissue was absent. Biology is everywhere. You just need to look at it that way.